Hi everybody. Today is the 4th of June. That means exactly 31 years ago, it was a terrible massacre on the Tiananmen Square. It is really ironic, Tiananmen in Chinese means heavenly peace, square of heavenly peace. And that happened that thousands of people, innocent people, were shot dead by the People's Liberation Army. Another irony, People's Liberation Army. That's the way they liberate people. And, in Hong Kong, since June last year, it has also been many, many brutal scenes we have seen. And a lot of people worry it could be another Tiananmen massacre in Hong Kong. And I believe it is true. We are not far away from it. And we are now closer to that risk since the Chinese government make this national security law to, just post on Hong Kong, push Hong Kong people, force Hong Kong people to accept this law made by them. Now, talking about Hong Kong, which is a kind of hot topic, Hong Kong has become a kind of focus of world politics. Some people say Hong Kong is now today's Berlin Wall, today's West Berlin. So it has a strong impact in the world politics. Now, in order to understand what is going on in Hong Kong, like everything else, it's better if we understand the history of it. If you want to understand myself, I better know more about my history. You too. So I would like to spend a couple of minutes to tell you about the history of Hong Kong. Not the 1,000 years of history, but say the last 150 years or so. So Hong Kong has always been Chinese territory for thousands of years. But, until 1840, Hong Kong was basically just a kind of a fishing village. And what happened is, you may have heard about the Opium War. Why there's Opium War? Why is it called Opium War? Well, is it called Opium War because China, at that time, the Chinese emperor government forbid the British to sell opium to China. Okay? So they confiscated tons of opium and burned it up. And that angered Great Britain, so they sent warship to China, and that's why Opium War. But then, how come that the British sent opium to China? Well, some communist propaganda, they only tell Chinese people, those terrible Britons, they try to poison our people with opium. It's not the whole truth. It's no good to sell opium. But it is not as the propaganda say that, the Brits try to poison Chinese people. Actually, the whole thing started with trade unbalance. Already at that time. You don't think that we have trade only today. At that time, you have a trade between China and Britain. And the trade was totally unbalanced. That means the British people bought much, much more things from China than the opposite direction. Why? Because Chinese-made silk, Chinese-made porcelain, and Chinese-made tea and spices and so on were very attractive for British people. But, textile made in Manchester and things like that were not so attractive for Chinese people. They buy almost nothing. They think Chinese silk is much better than the textile from the Manchester machines. So this total imbalance make that many Brits start to think, how can we sell better to China? So some Brits got the idea. We know that a lot of Chinese like to smoke opium. So remember, it is not the British people who make Chinese people to smoke opium. They smoked already. And China at that time still, compared to England, is quite a rich country. And particularly the rich people in China, it's not good enough to enjoy wine and parties and women and all this. So they were enjoying opium also. So the Brits came with the idea. India was their colony. They could get very cheap raw material of opium and send it to Manchester and change it to powder, purify it, and sold it to China as opium powder. Very successful. The trade balance changed quickly. So because the Chinese emperor at that time, Emperor Daoguang, he was convinced by his people that it's no good for Chinese people to smoke opium. So he agreed to ban opium. Ban to smoke, ban to buy, ban to sell, ban, and so on. So it was also banned for the British to export to China. But the British ignore it, and they still do it. And so that's why came the Opium War. Now, actually, it was quite interesting. They attacked first Guangzhou, the southern harbor city of China. And the Brits, although they were superior in building cannon boats, they did not manage, actually, to beat the Chinese. But they were not stupid. So they moved by waterway up to the level of Beijing and attacked Beijing there. And the Chinese did not have much defense. It was unexpected. So they managed, actually, to come all the way to the Chinese palace. So those people who have been in Beijing visit the old palace, exactly that place. They even managed to come all the way to the palace and, put the gun on the emperor, so to say, and say, sign the contract. I mean, I simplify. It took some years, some time to negotiate. So at the end, they signed a treaty called the Nanjing Treaty, 1842. So in that treaty, there are 16 points or so, but one of the points that has to do with Hong Kong. In that point, it says, from now on, Hong Kong will become colony of Britain forever. And by Hong Kong, they means the island of Hong Kong. The British call it also Victoria Island, Hong Kong Island, and Kowloon. For those who have been in Hong Kong, Kowloon is a part of this peninsula on the other side of the harbor. So according to the treaty, these two parts of Hong Kong will be British forever. Now, after a few decades, 1898, the British find that only the island of Hong Kong and Kowloon is too small, too little space. So in order for future development and expansion, they asked China to give them more space. And that is to move northward of the territory. And they got it. But the Chinese emperor said, you don't get it as a colony, but you can lease it for 99 years. So that was 1898. So that's why we have 22 years ago, or 23 now, soon, this handover to China. Now, actually, if you stick to the treaty or the agreement, Britain only need to return the new territory back to China, or to extend the lease. And Britain tried it. Margaret Thatcher talked to Deng Xiaoping and said, can we extend it for another 50 years? Deng Xiaoping said, what? If you talk like this, I send army tomorrow and take everything back. It's like that. So it was a very tough negotiation. But then Margaret Thatcher said, hey, the Hong Kong Island and Kowloon is forever British. Why should I give it back? And so on. So at the end, they make a compromise. And the compromise is, Margaret Thatcher told Deng Xiaoping, okay, I give you back also Hong Kong Island and Kowloon, but you have to promise you don't change the system in Hong Kong for 50 years. And at the end, they agree on that condition. So now, it's interesting, because agreements say, if you do not change the system in Hong Kong for 50 years, then I give you back also Hong Kong Island and Kowloon, not just new territories. So in a way, what Chinese government has done now, by setting up this national security law, which will give them all freedom to do whatever they want in Hong Kong. So this guarantee of 50 years, one country, two system has become nothing. They are moving to the direction one country, one system. So theoretically, if Britain is strong and courageous, they can say, hey, you breach the contract. Because the condition is, if you keep 50 years unchanged, I will hand back even the island and the Kowloon for you. And now you are not doing it. So sorry, I will take back Hong Kong Island and Kowloon. Yeah, of course, that will lead to a war. But if Britain is really, really want to protect the freedom in Hong Kong, and U.S. may even back them up, so that can be, theoretically can be, but it needs courage and it needs righteousness. So interesting is, under the rule of Britain, Hong Kong converted in 100-odd years from a fishing village to the world's third biggest financial center. This is something actually quite fantastic. Yeah? And I personally believe it is an interesting combination, a kind of productive combination between Chinese traditional culture, where the Chinese people in Hong Kong still kept, because no communists there systematically tried to destroy the traditional culture, and combined with a modern rule of law introduced by the Brits. Yeah? So that combination was the basis for Hong Kong to become very prosperous. And people enjoy decades of freedom and high degree of respect of human rights until the communists came and took it back, unfortunately. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't have any illusion about what the Communist Party can improve themselves. Don't make the same mistake as I did. I also thought 30 years ago that they may become better one day, but no, not after the massacre, and not afterward. I learned all the atrocity they have done. This is a regime that I don't see any chance that they will improve themselves. So no illusion. We better wake up and together stop this evil trying to poisoning the whole world. So today, 4th of June, and we should really make sure that to defend the freedom of Hong Kong. We are defending freedom, and freedom has no border. Today, they try to crush Hong Kong. Tomorrow, they may do the same for Taiwan. And day after tomorrow, maybe they are outside your door. Thank you. And if you like it, click like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye-bye.